We'll get started. This is our Hurricane Isaias briefing. Most of you should have gotten this briefing in your email earlier this morning. We're going to go over a couple things. Not a lot of change with the track itself. It is a little slower in terms of the arrival time of winds, but we still expect the storm Isaias, as it gets up over our area, to be a quick mover, and that will have a lot of regard with rainfall amounts and also surge possibilities and also wind speeds. This is our threat level graphic. You'll notice that the threat has increased for tornadoes based on the current track. Now that we're a little bit closer, we do think that a lot of our area might be to the right of the center, especially down near the coast and the Outer Banks as it stands right now. So as early as Monday afternoon, especially Monday night, that tornado threat. And if you've seen any of our preparedness, hurricanes and tropical cyclones, it's not just about the wind, it's about multiple threats. So we could be seeing that with tornadoes. We're already seeing it with rip currents. With regards to rainfall, we still expect that the storm motion will be fast enough that it's not going to be a long duration, widespread major event like what we saw with Florence, where the storm just sits over us. So that will lessen the impact. With regard to surge, it's still not the higher threat right now. That's more because we don't know the specifics. We're still just a little too far out to talk numbers, especially since the arrival of the winds has been pushed forward about 12 hours. We are going to start to talk about areas we're concerned with, especially based on the current track, and we'll do that here in a second. If you want to talk specific numbers, probably call us offline for that, because again, a little too early to get cued with anything with regard to surge. As I mentioned, Isaias, the track has been very, very similar. You're going to see some slight wobbles here and there, but by and large, our confidence is high that we're going to see the storm. You have watched the excellent forecast from the Hurricane Center not change much, so it's going to come, but it's all in the details, as it always is. A slight shift either way will make a big difference. Based on the current track near the coastline of Florida on Sunday into Monday, and it's very, very important, if it tracks on the western end of that forecast cone, more over land, less time over water, that would favor a weaker storm and a landfall to the west of the cone. That could have implications with a rainfall, tornado threat, and surge, and also the intensity of the storm would likely be weaker. If the track is like it is now, or just a few hairs to the east, longer duration over the water, and keep in mind this water is very warm, especially off the coastline of South Carolina. Favorable environment as we get northward, so there's a potential that this could strengthen back into a hurricane. I say back into a hurricane because the official forecast right now is a strong tropical storm moving over our area. Not a lot of difference between a strong tropical storm and a low-end hurricane. So don't let your guard down. Just like we say, don't focus on just the category. Not a big difference between a strong tropical storm and a low-end hurricane. So keep that in mind. You've done an excellent job helping us with this. Continue to preach about rip currents. We have a whole new group of people arriving at the beach. They want to get a weekend in before we get the storm. Can certainly understand that. But get out that message of the dangers of rip currents, because we've already seen it yesterday, and we expect that to continue right into early next week. Tropical storm force wind probabilities continue to increase. They're highest over the coastal regions, up over 40%. We expect this trend to continue to increase unless there's major changes with the storm track. One of the biggest changes is the arrival of the tropical storm force winds, and the wind threat has slowed down a little bit. Only the arrival time. We still expect once Isaias gets up over our area to rapidly accelerate to the north and east. So that hasn't changed, but the front and the onset has changed. So now the earliest reasonable would be sometime Monday evening. This is a reasonable worst case scenario when you should complete your plans by. That's when the winds could pick up at the earliest. The most likely time, though, for those stronger winds is later Monday night, perhaps as late as early Tuesday morning up across the Outer Banks. So again, that's slowed down just a little bit. As far as rainfall goes, the amount's still about the same, 2 to 4 inches of rain. Your eyes are drawn toward kind of the bullseye over toward Greenville and Kenansville and Wallace, and lesser amounts toward the Outer Banks. Remember, it's track dependent, so it could just as easily shift back to the east. But overall, the thinking has not changed. With the fast movement of Isaias, as the storm moves over our area, we don't expect a long duration, widespread flood event. With that said, you get under one of these heavy rain bands, and we still could have some localized issues with regards to flooding. Sustained winds of tropical storm force possible across the majority of our area. The swath right now, based on the storm track, would be across the Crystal Coast and the central part of our area. But again, it could wiggle a little bit to the west, could wiggle a little bit to the east. So prepare for at least tropical storm force winds over a good part of our area, and the risk for power outages and downed trees. Ryan included this graphic last night, peak wind gust. I like to show it, especially to show people that we still have the potential for hurricane force wind gusts, even with a tropical storm, strong tropical storm tracking across our area. So keep that in mind. In reality, the core of hurricane force winds is going to be really, really small. So on this graphic, it's very, very wide, but in reality, it's going to be a much more narrow corridor when it moves through. But this just gives you the idea that, again, can't rule out some hurricane force wind gusts based on what is happening. So those are our key takeaways. I mentioned storm surge. We don't have specific numbers, but with a storm track, based on the current storm track now, with that southeast flow, our initial concerns oceanside would be the Crystal Coast and the Outer Banks, especially south of Rodanthe, because of that southeast flow. With that southeast flow too, another area of concern would be up the Neuse and Pamlico rivers because of the funneling effect as well. Now, as Isaias moves off to the north and east, we could have some surge on the backside for sound side issues. I should mention, I talked to Drew up in Dare County. You still could have sound side issues on the front end with that southerly and southeasterly wind pushing it up toward places like Kitty Hawk and Manio, especially north of Pea Island. There could be some issues on the backside, but it's still a little too far out to get cute with that. So we want to highlight the oceanside issues first, and also especially up the Pamlico and Neuse rivers as some potential for some higher surge values. And you can give us a buzz offline, if Stanley, if you're on, and other folks, so we can discuss that a little bit more in depth. So that is it. I apologize that we were late. Again, I promise you I was talking. Nobody could hear it because I didn't start the broadcast. You would think we have enough experience with this. So at this